Don Lemon is going to have Joel Pollack, funny name, he's a Jew, by the way, who is the editor-in-chief and also in-house counsel for Breitbart. And this guy is going to try to blow sunshine up everybody's asses by claiming that Steve Bannon is not a white supremacist, he's not a trafficker in white supremacy or white nationalism, etc. And his defense is going to be, always show me an article or show me something. But Steve Bannon's own words condemn him as being a supporter for white supremacists and white nationalism. All right, this is going to be a rather long clip, so just be prepared.
Thank you very much. I want to bring in now Kurt Bardella as a former spokesman for Breitbart, and Evan, McMullen, the independent presidential candidate. Sorry about that, Evan. But before we get to them, I want to start with Joel Pollack. Joel is a senior editor-at-large and in-house counsel for Breitbart News. Thank you, Joel. Thank you to the entire panel. But Joel, I'm going to start with you. Who is the real Steve Bannon? Is he an anti-Semite, a white nationalist, a misogynist, as many believe?
Well, the first thing to acknowledge is that Steve Bannon is a national hero. Because of Steve Bannon and Kellyanne, they saved Donald Trump's campaign and they helped him win the White House. And as a result of that, we're going to see Supreme Court appointments of individuals who will uphold the Constitution. And for that, America owes Steve Bannon a great debt of gratitude. But no, he's not an anti-Semite. He is a person who treats all people equally. You can see I'm an Orthodox Jew, I'm very observant. I keep the Sabbath, I keep all the Jewish holidays, I keep kosher. Steve and I have worked together in close quarters for...
Okay, but that doesn't mean that you're not a self-hating Jew. All of that stuff that you just said doesn't mean anything. There are black people that hate themselves and they hate other black people. It goes to reason that there are Jewish people out there that hate Jewish people.
4.5 years, and he's always been very sensitive to Jewish concerns. He's probably the most pro-Israel advisor ever appointed to the White House. And I have to fact-check Tom Foreman there. You know, if you're going to report something, you have to get the facts right. Breitbart News has nothing to do with birtherism, absolutely nothing. And I can tell you that firsthand because I'm the person who reported on some of that phenomenon. And you have...
See, and now that's bullshit, because when Donald Trump first came out there and became the face of the birtherism movement, it was Breitbart that was giving him a blogging platform to push that particular agenda. So what you just said is bullshit.
You make sure that you tell your viewers the truth about this.
Yes, we'll discuss that with Kurt as well, who's a spokesman, in just a moment here. But you said he's not an anti-Semite. Is he a white nationalist? My question, a white nationalist, a misogynist, or even bigoted in any way that you know of?
Not at all. Steve Bannon does not have a bone of prejudice in his body. And in fact, Steve Bannon went out of his way at Breitbart to look for talent among non-traditional conservatives, just like Andrew Breitbart had championed the cause of black conservatives, Latino conservatives, women conservatives. Steve Bannon did the same thing, and he brought people on board. You know, I see Kurt there on television. He's an Asian American conservative. Here we are, an Asian American conservative, an Orthodox Jewish conservative, both of whom work for Steve Bannon. And the question is whether he's a white nationalist. I think not.
Well, then why traffic in that if he's not? Is that even more insidious if he's not, but then he traffics in it?
Can you name for me, Don, one white nationalist article at Breitbart? Just one. I saw that whole build-up segment. I didn't see a single white nationalist article. Not one.
There's an article offending the alt-right, and also the alt-right praises Breitbart, and even he has said he is a platform for the alt-right. So, you know, why traffic in that if he doesn't support it?
It's important to draw a distinction between covering something and defending something. We published an article several months ago explaining the alt-right, talking about which parts of it were more offensive, which parts of it were less so. And that's not defending the alt-right, that's explaining it. In fact, the title, I believe, was something like Explaining the Alt-Right to Mainstream Conservatives. That's journalism, that's not defense or advocacy. So I think it's very important to understand the distinction between those two, and that's a distinction we made very clearly at Breitbart and still make today.
I said traffic and I didn't say defend it. But anyway, so I want to bring in the other members of the panel now so that they can get in on this. Kurt, you worked with Breitbart, you know Steve Bannon. This is a man who said the website is a platform for the alt-right. We've seen the headlines. Can you separate the man from the website? A similar question that I asked Joel before. Can you separate the man?
All right, I just want to hold that up right there so you get a real opportunity to see some of the titles and stories that they've done. Political correctness protects Muslim rape culture. Baby Giffords, the gun control movement's human shield. I'm sorry, Gabby Giffords, the gun control movement's human shield. What kind of a bullshit story is that? Bill Crystal, Republican spoiler, renegade Jew. Would you rather your child have feminism or cancer? Climate experts. Marxist, global warming, extremist control Vatican. Yeah, okay. Birth control makes women unattractive and crazy. Data. Young Muslims in the West are a ticking time bomb, increasingly sympathizing with radicals' terror. Last one says, hoisted high and proud, the Confederate flag proclaims a glorious heritage. Okay. You decide for yourself on those.
Does he hold these views?
Well, whether he holds these views or not, I don't think there is a separation between Steve Bannon and Breitbart. I think at this point, they're one and the same. I've said this before. They're now going to go from being the propaganda arm of the Donald Trump campaign to now being the propaganda arm of the federal government. For the first time, you're going to have a White House co-chief of staff, essentially, being able to run a media enterprise right out of the West Wing. And I think that's incredibly concerning and troubling given the type of content that Breitbart tends to publish and given the audience that they're playing to. And if we take Joel with his experience and say, okay, Joel, maybe he's not any of those things. Well, the audience that you're catering to certainly are those things. And so you're deliberately playing to that, playing to the worst divisiveness, the most prejudices, the worst racial divides to either try to get traffic or motivate people to support you. And I think that's despicable.
Is it simply being too cute by half by saying, pointing out, well, you're an Asian American, he's a Jewish American or whatever, but is that?
Just because you treat one person that happens to be associated with a particular gender, race, or religion doesn't mean that's how you treat everybody.
Yeah. Evan, I want to ask you, the New York Times has a new interview with Bannon tonight, and they say he rejected what he called ethno-nationalist tendencies of some in the movement. His interest in populism and American nationalism, he said, has to do with curbing what he sees as the corrosive effects of globalization, and he believes his enemies are misstating his views and those of many Trump followers. These people are patriots, he said. They love their country. They just want their country taken care of. He added, it's not that some people on the margins, as in any movement, aren't the bad guys, racists, anti-Semites, but that's irrelevant. What's your reaction, Evan?
Well, just as you said, Don, Bannon is somebody who's called Breitbart a platform for the alt-right movement. He cannot divorce himself from that statement. If that weren't the case, then I think that we'd be having a different discussion. But he can say what he wants now, but the fact is that the KKK and the American Nazi Party are all celebrating his appointment. He said very truthfully that Breitbart was a platform for the alt-right movement. The alt-right movement is certainly a white supremacist, white nationalist movement that does involve racism. It just is what it is. And if you're Donald Trump, if you're the president-elect, it should be high on your list of priorities to unite the country, especially after such a divisive campaign. And we just don't see that with Bannon picked as chief strategist.
That said, Joel, here's what my colleague Anna Navarro tweeted this. She said, folks, it's real simple. Good, decent, inclusive Americans who believe in equality do not get praised by the American Nazi Party and the KKK. So the question is, why does President-elect Trump want Bannon in the White House? Joel?
Well, let's put it this way. You have the new Black Panther Party praising Barack Obama. You have Obama sitting in Jeremiah Wright's church for 20 years, and he dissociated himself from Jeremiah Wright.
None of those people.
See, and that's the point. See, now he's just spinning. The new Black Panther Party was not sitting in the White House with Barack Obama for the past 8 years. Reverend Jeremiah Wright, okay, who got a bum rap, okay, and they took one particular sentence way out of context, was not sitting with the president for the past 8 years. And on top of that, when the chips fell, President Obama actually distanced himself from Jeremiah Wright, which kind of ticked off quite a few black people, because sound bites basically went to destroy this man. Donald Trump not only is not distancing himself from the alternate right, he's placing the alternate right, white supremacists, white nationalists. I keep saying alternate right. It's white supremacists and white nationalists, a person of position with those groups in a position of power in the White House. That's the difference.
Or
So wait a second, you have to.
But hold on.
No, he was.
If you're asking
right.
me, if you're asking me to be honest and fact check, none of those people were advisors to the president. He did not appoint any of those people. When
You're
he
not
came to
applying the same standard to both people. Barack Obama was the president and came from this environment. Steve Bannon does not come from those environments. And Anna Navarro and Evan McMullen have both lied openly about Steve Bannon. They have both said he's an anti-Semite. Evan is on your show tonight. He can't defend that statement. Kurt Bardella didn't even try to say whether Steve Bannon is an anti-Semite or not. So the entire premise of your discussion, Don, is Steve Bannon's an anti-Semite. I think we've proven that to be false because Evan can't defend it, Kurt can't defend it, Anna can't defend it, and it's not true. And I think that when you do this is what the media...
It absolutely is true. And I don't have access to my computer right now. It's going to be 3 days. But if I did, you can go to the Anti-Defamation League's website. They have come out with a blistering condemnation of Steve Bannon being placed in that position. And if there's anybody who knows about anti-Semites, it's the ADL, Anti-Defamation League.
Is what the establishment does. They throw out a bunch of innuendo to try to smear somebody. The most offensive thing Steve Bannon ever did was win the White House with Donald Trump. And if it was up to these people, it would be Hillary Clinton picking the Supreme Court and consigning our democracy to decline. And Steve Bannon deserves the praise of these folks, not their condemnation.
I don't know how you can talk about, decline on Clinton's behalf when, in the reality, one of the very first things that Donald Trump did was on Sunday tweets out an attack against the New York Times that was 100% false, wasn't true, made up numbers about circulation that the Times disputed. So where's the Breitbart story saying Donald Trump lied about the New York Times? And if we're going to play let's be fact checkers, let's tell both sides of the story, where's the Breitbart story highlighting the inaccuracies of the many things that Donald Trump has said that just are point blank not true?
I think that's a fair question. I think you should go write something about it. The point of this discussion is whether...
See, you see how they twisted it? He quickly acknowledged that it's a fair question and then turned around and said, you guys take care of that because we at Breitbart aren't.
And as a white nationalist and anti-Semite, I'm glad that we've put that myth to bed. Now let's move on to talking about the...
I don't think we put that myth to bed. I think that's still a question about it. Just because you say it, it doesn't mean that he's not. And I don't know that he is, but he certainly traffics in it when he says...
He made a business of it.
Yes.
He certainly did not. You guys can't throw out lies like that and ask me to prove a negative when you can't even prove the positive. I could say anything about you, Don Lemon. You know, your network had a commentator the other night who said that the vote for Donald Trump was a white lash. Now, are you a black nationalist network because Van Jones said that there was a white lash? I mean...
Okay, see, now he's mixing apples and oranges. A commentator on a network is one thing, and if that commentator had sent something that network disagreed with, or had no power over, the network, then would be responsible, But in the case of I'm sorry, I keep saying Andrew Breitbart. In the case of Steve Bannon, he has absolute control over everything that comes out of that particular blog. Now, CNN, they, from point in time to point in time, do make some, let us say, slightly derogatory or inflammatory statements. But everything that comes out of Breitbart is of that vein. So no, you're mixing apples with oranges. In one case, you're talking about a commentator who makes a statement that may or may not be controversial. On the other, you're talking about a CEO who has total control on everything that comes out. Bad analogy.
That's just ridiculous.
That's apples and pears.
No, it's not. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing.
Nothing to do with anything.
You cannot prove the case you're making.
You're doing it. Someone who makes a comment on television in a discussion. Van Jones does not own a website. that traffics in white nationalism or admits that it traffics in black nationalism or for the alt-black. So your comparison makes no sense, but we'll discuss. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Those who voted against Donald Trump but are willing to give him a chance, is the appointment of Steve Bannon a step backwards for the Trump administration? Back with me now, Kurt Bardella, Evan McMullen, and Joel Pollack. Kurt, I want to ask you about this. This is Kellyanne Conway, what she says about Steve Bannon.
That I work very closely with Steve Bannon. He's been the general of this campaign, and frankly, people should look at the full resume. He's got a Harvard business degree. He's a naval officer. He has success in entertainment. I don't know if you're aware of that, and he certainly was a Goldman Sachs managing partner. Brilliant technician. I'm personally offended that you think I would manage a campaign where that would be one of the going philosophies. It was not.
The funny thing about it, she failed to mention that he ran a Breitbart. Yeah, really proud of that. So proud, and that was his last position before he joined the Trump campaign. Kind of funny that you forgot that one.
I've heard several Trump surrogates on, giving those exact same talking points on air today, almost in the exact order that she said it. But do you think that Donald Trump is being tone deaf to millions of Americans who are fearful about a Trump presidency because of someone like Steve Bannon?
Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump cares at all about those people. I think the paradigm that Steve and Mr. Trump, I think, view the world through is they won the election, they did it their way, and the onus is on everybody else to adapt to how they think, not on them to try to evolve or change based on the enormity of being the President of the United States and the virtual co-chief of staff. I think that they think everybody else needs to come around. They don't need to do anything else.
That's usually not how it works.
No,
that's usually not what we ask presidents to do.
And I think that's one of the real concerns.
Leaders, any sort of politician.
I think that's where they're setting themselves up for failure, is not having that humility and understanding the gravity of the job that's going to be before them. And I think at some point, President-elect Trump is going to be in over his head. We're seeing already stories about how President Obama wants to spend more time with Mr. Trump to prepare him to be commander-in-chief because it was so obvious in their meeting and their conversation he wasn't up for it yet.
Yeah. Evan, Donald Trump told his supporters who are harassing minorities to stop it, but you say that doesn't mean much when he brings in someone like Bannon into the West Wing. Should Trump address these concerns?
Well, yes, I think he should, and I think he has tried to a degree. But if you're going to continue with Steve Bannon, then those actions speak louder than any words you might give. And I will say, Don, that I think the discussion about whether Bannon is an anti-Semite, whether he is a white supremacist, all of that's a little even off the point. I think the real question is, what are the ideas that our leaders advance? Mm-hmm. And our leaders now are advancing ideas, at least with the appointment of Steve Bannon, who advanced the ideas of the alt-right as a part of Breitbart, are advancing ideas that are enormously destructive and divisive in our country, that violate the foundational principles upon which our country was founded. It's hard to say, to look into a man's heart and say exactly what they believe or feel. We'll never know. But it's about the ideas that they advance. And one thing is very clear, Steve Bannon has advanced the ideas of the alt-right. He knows that his business has been setting up or furthering a platform for their ideas. And Donald Trump has got to repudiate that. And it's not possible to do that if Steve Bannon's your chief strategist.
And I also realize that by doing that, he may have normalized the alt-right in some way, normalized white nationalism, which should not be normalized. So listen, Joel, earlier we spoke about the article on Breitbart.com, an establishment conservative's guide to alt-right. It's a very long and sympathetic description of the movement, which includes this. I'm going to read this. It says, meanwhile, the alt-right openly cracks jokes about the Holocaust, loudly, albeit almost entirely satirically, expresses its horror at race mixing and denounces the degeneracy of homosexuals while inviting Jewish, gays, and mixed race Breitbart reporters to their secret dinner parties. What gives? If you're this far down the article, you'll know some of the answers already. For the Mean Brigade, it's just about having fun. They have no real problem with race mixing, homosexuality, or even diverse societies. It's just fun to watch the mayhem and the outrage that erupts when those secular shibboleths are openly mocked. So I'm just reading this now. So making fun and joking about the Holocaust, calling gays degenerate, I mean, being horrified by race mixing, and it's all just fun, how is that okay?
That's not okay. That's called journalism. That article describes some of what was going on in the alt-right, and you just said that that's the first time that...
And there he goes. He's trying to denigrate Don Lemon, and to Don Lemon's going to give a great answer on that, which basically is, I don't normally go around reading Breitbart articles.
Making outrageous claims.
Well, let me hold on here. I don't read a lot of Breitbart because, quite frankly, I'm offended by a lot of what they put up there. I have read it. I haven't read every single article on Breitbart, and I'm sure you haven't read every single article on Breitbart as well. My question to you is that why he is promoting this? He is saying that his website is the platform for the alt-right. And this article on that website is part of the thing that's saying, hey, this is what they do. They make fun of people, and they really don't care about it.
You should read the entire article. I think the article stands for itself. I think it goes through the different components of the alt-right. It's called journalism. The New Yorker does it. The New York Times does it. CNN occasionally does it. And for Evan McMullin to sit there and not apologize for his lie about calling Steve Bannon an anti-Semite and then lie again by saying that Steve Bannon advocates for the ideas of the alt-right. I'd like to see Evan McMullin name one single idea of the alt-right that Steve Bannon has ever advocated for. I'll give you time to do it. You don't have to go to this broadcast.
Joel, let me ask you, has Steve Bannon ever said that Breitbart was a platform for the alt-right?
I think he said that to Mother Jones, but what I can tell you is this. There is a distinction. I think there's a distinction between covering the alt-right and defending it. And the fact is that people on the alt-right are sharing Breitbart articles.
That's not what he
something
said.
we can do anything about.
He didn't say we cover the alt-right. He said we are the platform for the alt-right.
Well, he said that, and I defy you to explain what that means. You have two guests on there.
I'm asking you, what could it possibly mean? That's why we have you on. What else could it mean?
So what you guys have said, hold on, the suggestion is that Breitbart is a white nationalist website. We've disproved that.
No, you have not disproved that. Okay, and see, and this is a trick that a lot of these Trump surrogates, and especially now these white supremacist surrogates, want to pull. They want to try to fast talk you. They want to also try to run out the clock. So they want to talk and talk and talk until the interview time is up. So, and this guy just lied because no, they did not disprove that Breitbart is not the alt-right. So he just lied.
No, you haven't.
Yes, we have. You cannot name what you have not named. You've had a lot of time to do research, and you haven't come up with one white nationalist article at Breitbart. You said that Steve Bannon is an anti-Semite, yet you haven't provided any examples.
Let's put this up.
Let me finish.
No, I want you to look at this. This is a headline from Breitbart after the church shootings in Charleston. Hoist it high and proud. The Confederate flag proclaims a glorious heritage. And said it should be. You should hoist it high and proud from every church and everywhere. So what is that?
That's not what the article said, but the article is a defense of the Confederate.
That's exactly what the article said. You saw for yourself that was the title of the article. And he's got the balls to say that's not what the article said? Give me a fucking break.
Confederate flag is an historical symbol, and there are people at other websites and other newspapers who've made the same argument. That was an argument made by Democrats for a long time, and that is an argument that this deserves to be seen as separate from the Charleston massacre, and that's a legitimate argument. And I think if you can go to David French at National Review Online and read the same argument. It happens to be an argument that lost.
Okay,
but
here's what it says.
What you're doing
here's what it says. It's hoist it high and proud. Every tree, every rooftop, every picket fence, every telegraph pole in the South should be festooned with a Confederate battle flag.
That's not white nationalist. What you're talking about is an opinion about the Confederate flag as a symbol of history.
It's a symbol for the white nationalists, you prick. Okay, over in Germany, they hoist that same flag. It's a symbol for neo-Nazis and white supremacists. So for you to say anything else is total bullshit.
It used to be commonly accepted in the South. It's not something that I think is a good idea, but it is part of... Yeah, but Kurt Bardella, you know that Steve Bannon is not a white nationalist. You know that he's not an anti-Semite, and yet that's the premise on which you've come on the air to smear him. So now that we've established that you can't prove that he's an anti-Semite, you cannot establish... Look, the Zionist Organization of America has come out in defense of Steve Bannon and said that he's pro-Israel and that he has empathy for the Jewish people. And you guys have no answer to that, and you've used up this
Joel,
precious
hey, Joel,
airtime
I'm curious.
to basically smear a man and
Because
smear
no
a
one's been able to ask
website.
Breitbart
And now
this,
that you
and I
can't,
think
you
that
can't
there's an
prove
answer
your
here.
point. Excuse me, Kurt, you would do better to listen with your ears instead of your mouth.
Wow.
It's,
Okay,
it's
Joel.
good to.
Okay, and there he goes pulling a Trumpism, which is to basically try to dog out a person that has an opposite viewpoint, to insult and attempt to embarrass him. This guy is a real fucking asshole.
Put your
It's
big
good.
boy pants
listen,
on now.
it's-
we're
it's
all
a lecture we
gonna,
all
we're all
need.
gonna have to
Can't-
listen to the commercial break with our ears. Thank you very much. I have to go. Coming up.
All right, so there you have it. Decide for yourself. That guy Joe Polak is a real asshole, and he's going to try to either double talk his way around a subject, change the subject. There is no doubt that Breitbart is anti-Semitic, it's anti-black, it's anti-immigrant, it's anti-Muslim, it's anti-damn near everything that ain't male and white.